Welcome back to the program. Joining me now is my guest host for the day, Andy Madaki. Hi, Andy.
Hi, Osasu.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Excited to be here?
Always.
On the program today for the lifestyle segment, we have Dr. David Uzochukwu, who is a general physician with almost a decade of solid clinical experience. Also, we have Dayo Benjamins-Laniyi. She's the managing director of DOXA GROUP. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us.
Thank you. Nice to be on here on the show.
Today's program is My Body, My Right, ? This has been decades of conversations regarding abortion. Those people who are for it, those people who are against it. And we really want to know, at the end of the day, as a woman, if you decide to go ahead and abort your child who is growing in your body, is this really, number one, is this really against any moral, ethical standard? Is her body her property, and is it her right to go ahead with something like this?
Yes, looking at me, Dayo.
Of course.
Well, hi everyone. My position, really, because abortion is controversial, whichever way we want to look at it, and it's globally politically so. It's gender emphatic because of the 1973 original case of Roe and Wade. And that gives it a certain context where it becomes a woman's issue. More than a woman's issue, within the global context of our UN reference, it's a feminist issue as well. And one that very much the chagrin of the feminists call the politics and the polity is very sensitive. My position is what people would very easily call a pro-life, but I'd like to properly articulate it this way. Your topic, my body,
My right.
my right.
Question mark.
Question mark, I go it this way. My body, my dignity, no question marks. It's what I own, it's a pedigree of who I am. Your genealogy, man or woman, is your humanity, and you own that. Now, in talking about a woman having the right over the abortion factor of her pregnancy, right? It becomes a question of your life, yes, but there is another life in you, growing in you. And according to, not according, scientifically when you look at that, Dr. David, please correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. You have what I found out, the umbilical attachment isn't just a cord. You have the umbilical cord, umbilical vein, and umbilical arteries.
So all this to say that a woman doesn't have the right to do what she wants with her body?
It's a personal decision,
okay.
And the woman is the final count on that, and you cannot take that away from her. So, for instance, when people say, must it be a government-regulated thing, call it government or whatever, the truth of the matter, it's the woman. It is her decision. It's her emotions. If she was raped and she's in a position where you're now telling her to own this baby, it's a challenge to a lot of things. And that's why my own challenge to the government is, before we go clamoring so much about the law, where are the interventions? Where is that proviso in the place of a fundamental human dignity right that has emotionally managed that woman to a place that even if she cannot love that baby by having that baby, she has been embraced into a place of emotional health and emotional strength to still go ahead and birth a child for someone who's unable to have a baby.
Okay, so that's yes. Quite interesting, but let's speak to Dr. David.
Right.
Being a medical practitioner, I know most of you are shy speaking about such issues, but abortions in Nigeria, a study has shown that about 1.2 million abortions are induced in Nigeria yearly. And it also shows that about 456,000 are illegal abortions and also unsafe, considering how much this leads to complications and deaths. As a medical practitioner, do you feel this should be the person's right, or should this actually be regulated?
You see, when it comes to abortion, it is a very controversial topic in our society today, even with doctors. Because look at us, we have, in Nigeria, we have diverse ethnicity and cultural and religious belief regarding abortion. And if you ask me, We can refer, medically, we refer abortion to miscarriages, you know. But in this case, I believe we're talking about induced abortion. Be it medically, be it surgically, method done. We know that abortion is still done in Nigeria.
That's true.
You saw the figure, like you rightly said, 1.2 and 46,
400,
456,000 unsafe abortion. I believe the figures are higher than that.
Okay.
I believe the figures are higher than that. And if you look at the clinical practice, that is why a lot of doctors will be shy to come on air to talk about it. Today I've taken it, I said I would talk about it.
Okay, but David, let's talk about the irony of our law. So it's legal for contraceptives to be sold.
Yes.
So if it's legal for you to sell contraceptives, as much as we are pro-religious and pro-life and the like, why isn't it legal for people to have the choice to induce abortions or for the miscarriages, as doctors put it?
Okay, now look at this. I'll go back to the law. We are citizens of Nigeria. In the case of abortion, it differs from countries to countries. In our own law, abortion is illegal unless the pregnancy is posing a risk to the mother. So, as citizens and law-abiding citizens, do you want to do that? But as she said, in a case where the person is raped, what would you do? These are the considerations that they have in other countries that have implemented that, you know, having abortion as a normal routine.
So do doctors then take the law into their own hands to give or to induce the abortion of these victims of rape? How do you go about a situation like that?
Situations like that, you need to call the psychologist because it's a psychological issue, because it could cause a mental issue for the patient. And we all need, it's a multidisciplinary approach. You must have a medical reason you want to do that. The psychologist will have to come and say this cannot happen because of the trauma it's going to cause for this child, for this woman. And before the doctors can come into conclusion to do that.
And we see, I'll also bring you here in Dayo. Our research shows that a lot of abortions are done amongst young women, and they're done at home. They're done away from the hospital. We had a gruesome, so we asked our viewers to send in their personal stories, and we had a gruesome story from one of our viewers, how she used a hanger.
Yeah, I've heard those stories before. I think it's quite
I
scary.
When I heard that, like my heart literally dropped. A hanger to abort her baby.
Did you school in Nigeria?
No, I didn't.
All right, obviously not, because if you did school in Nigeria and you were in boarding school, these are one of the realities.
True.
You know, the truth is, abortion globally, at home, within the local spaces, at any rural level, to whatever grassroots, it didn't just start now. It's been on for eons. And even the traditional, not so much birth attendants, but moms, had ways in which they could induce an abortion to make sure that the family was not stigmatized by a daughter getting pregnant before marriage. These things are done. They have herbalists and they mix all these kind of things and they do roots. So it's all there. The only thing is it has transited. And I believe more than anything else, this is a profiling of our socio-cultural challenge in the place of communication and engagement within the, I won't even call them victims, within the young mom-to-be, the pregnant, the girl who finds out she's pregnant.
Not just young moms.
Yes,
Not just young moms.
I'm
so
just saying,
women
yes,
at all
women,
ages,
but
yes.
you know, you mentioned that predominantly it is found within a certain...
At-home abortions, right?
Exactly. Okay,
so those
at home.
ones that, that put the risk of the victim also, the life of the victim at risk. But let me get you to hold that thought for a bit. We have a Vox Pop. We went into the streets and asked everyday Nigerians their thoughts about this. Here's what they had to say.
I don't think abortion should be legalized because actually it's an act of murder and even the Bible is highly against that. And if by chance maybe a lady gets pregnant, maybe from rape or any circumstance at all, I think it's better off if the lady should keep the child and find a means of going about taking care of the child instead of indulging in abortion. Because outside that, it is even dangerous for the person involved because you might end up losing your life in the process also. So I think it's better off if it is not legalized at all.
Because this is Nigeria now. That is why Nigeria a get problem. If you reach to marry, if you reach 18 years, you reach to marry. Because abortion is not good to do. I don't want my daughter to do abortion. Because if he finish his school, he tell me, say, yes, he won't marry. I go allow her to marry, to do abortion. Abortion, they destroy. I don't like her to do abortion.
Abortion, as it were, from act of God, it's illegal. But at the same time, if you look at it, God wants recreation of human being. That is why we are in existence. But on the other hand, if you look at the health situation of a woman that is deterrent to her health that can lead to death. So in such a situation, abortion can say it is accepted, since it can be able to save the life of the mother. And at the same time, if the mother is okay, she can as well conceive later in life again. But if it's not legalized, you see that a lot of mortality will be recorded, and women that are dying will be increased over the time. So it depends on how the government can balance the situation. So it is important that government look into it and balance it. If we need to legalize it, let's look at the life of the woman at stake in question, about the mother.
Well, abortion, as a Christian, I don't think it should be legalized. Because we don't believe in killing. We believe that as soon as the fetus is formed, it's a human being.
I don't think abortion should be legalized because it is not good. And secondly, it's a sin before God. Aborting a child can lead to, you don't know who you are aborting. Maybe you are aborting the next president of Nigeria or the next president of the United States of America.
Welcome back to the lifestyle segment of the weekend show. Interesting views we had in the Vox Pop segment. So we're talking about abortion. My body, my right. How much right do you have to your body? And it's quite interesting here because we have a medical practitioner, Dr. David, and a feminist. She wears so many caps, to be honest. A woman also, and she also, I know, has some religious affiliations. And so we're talking about abortions and how it affects Nigeria, being known that this is a reality in our current day and age, and it happens. Now, I'll ask both of you briefly. The population of Nigeria keeps on increasing, and this is a constant conversation. We had that same situation in China, and so family planning was advised. But the truth of the matter is that even, and Dr. David, you will be able to confirm, even with family planning, you have cases where it doesn't work. Now, putting together the conversation of abortion and population growth, don't you think that this would help solve the problem if sorted out at an early stage? I'll start with you, Dayo.
All right. First of all, thank you very much. I am not a feminist.
Okay.
I am feminine, but that's another discussion for another day.
Okay.
I do embrace and celebrate, though, my feminist sisters. Like I said, it's another conversation for another day. Don't let's get this on the slippery slope. Don't let's get it. Let's face abortion.
I want to know what the difference is because I'm a feminist.
So,
you see, the reason I ask.
because you're very pro-woman
The reason I ask is because
rights.
a lot of feminists share the same view about this sensitive topic we're discussing.
Exactly.
So I want to know what the feminine view is and what the difference between feminine and feminist is.
Okay, well, I'm not going to go to the difference between feminine and feminist, except that you have nist and you have nin. And that's just an expression of a certain
So it's just semantics?
It's not just semantics. Like I said, I don't want to go there now. But, however, the issue, like you said rightly, is this is what the reality is. What's a feminine view about this? It's not a feminine view, actually. It's just my sincere view.
Okay.
Right? So if I just said that because I just wanted to, we're
To
nationwide.
clarify, yeah.
And I actually have a statement on being feminine and not feminist. I just wanted to make sure that it was clearly stated for my followers.
So let's go back to the population
and
how it
back
affects
to that point.
the topic,
right?
yeah.
Legalizing abortion is not the answer to the system failure of governance or administration. You were pointing something out. Lawlessness in a system, in a society, in the social matrix that we have evolved into, whether it's urban or rural. The truth of the matter is, our reality is, we live as a lawless people. Thank you, Dr. David. Yeah, you talk about the fact that in Nigeria, the law is that if it threatens a woman's life, she has an abortion. But we all know, like my sister has said, abortions are happening at home. They're real. You understand? You have botched abortions, and by the way, I'm one child who just ended up being alive here today because somehow or the other, the abortion thing didn't work out because I came at the wrong time as a stigma for my mom and my dad and all of that, and I should have been aborted. However, the abortion plan was aborted itself to give me life today. So therefore, when you look at the fact that the lawless things are happening, it's very real. You see people, just if you turn the corner here from Asokoro, they're going to break through a red light, claiming that it was still amber, just to get to the other side. And then you implicate and put every other person's life at risk by your lawless single action. For me, when you take abortion outside the circumference of it being a threat to life, and it's your own self-centered, you see, when you say pro-choice, I say pro-choice should begin much earlier on if we put the right educational, foundational things in place and helped both sons and daughters. Excuse me, please. The woman was talking about the fact that she doesn't want her daughter to have an abortion. It destroys her. I don't want my 3 sons to be responsible for giving any girl that kind of trauma for life, because the truth of the matter is, you may have an abortion and that life leaves you, but the fact that you have had an abortion will never leave your life. Somewhere in a woman, it is the way we are wired. I'm not saying you blame yourself. You're going to have an attitude about it. Either you're a rebel to it, and it's like, it's my body, I own it, I can do what I want, or you're somebody, something happened. It will always be a query. It's always something that you and someone else are going to have to discuss, argue about, come to a conclusion about. Some people hold it in a secret place. Other people come out and are overt about it and will argue about it and will shout about it. It's like a virginity. Is it this, is it that, and everything. And you know, the truth of the matter is, however, system failure is no excuse to tell me that legalizing abortion sorts out our economic challenges. Poverty is as a result of a system failure in education, in our health infrastructures, in governance, in leadership, in mentorship.
Dr. David, let me bring you in here. What do you, as a doctor, I know you've seen many scenarios like this where people come into the hospital, whether before an abortion or after a botched abortion. Yeah. What kind of stories have you seen? What kind of cases are predominant to this issue that we're discussing here today?
Now, most times in the clinical field, what we see are complicated cases, what we call incomplete abortion. Because most Nigerians, they know that it is illegal. So they shy away from the hospitals. I wish this study that was done by this US-based guy captured those who go to the pharmacy. A lot of atrocity happens there.
Exactly, because they're allowed to sell the drugs
now,
which aid.
Yeah, so what happens? We see them in the hospital bleeding profusely. Now we are saving a life for the mother. I'm talking about the mother now. So we have to do what we call MVA, manual vacuum aspiration, you know. And majority of times I see patients who come and they will ask you, oh doctor, I'm 4 weeks pregnant, or I just missed my period, what should I take? And the doctor will start advising and start counseling the patient. And why? What happened? This, we can't give this. Now, call who is responsible. Are you of age? You know? And when you ask them to come back, they don't come back. They would not come back to you. What they will do, they will go and source for the solution elsewhere. Most of the time, they take a sort of concussion. You talk about hunger, I've seen worse. Hunger. They take a lot of things, they use a lot of things into their private parts and just to abort the child.
So when an incomplete abortion, because you said that's what's most common, that's the most common case you see in the hospital. When that sort of situation comes, you are then forced to...
We can do that. Okay. We can do that.
So you're legally allowed to?
We are legally allowed to do that.
Okay.
Because at that time, we are saving a life. The pregnancy has been terminated.
Yeah.
So right now, we're just trying to evacuate the uterus.
Quick one, is that counseling after that? Because after that process, nobody talks about the post-process counseling. Does that happen?
Oh, it happens. You have to counsel the patient because
in reality, does it actually happen?
It happens. If it's done in the hospital, it happens.
Can I say something? I think one of the worst cases I've seen is, and this is religious-based, faith, and I'm a faith-based person pro all the way. But one of the greatest challenges in Nigeria is this faith-based misconception that puts all kinds of women into trouble. When I was having my first baby at Wuse General Hospital, there was a woman there who had a challenge with size of the baby. She insisted that she was not going to have the intervention of the CS. And they warned her what it was going to mean. She went off and said she's going to pray, and the pastor told her that she's going to have a normal delivery. And at the end of the day, they ended up hacking out the baby's head. Yes, you got to crack it because they had to break. There was a what do you call it, jam lock in the matrix. So they had to collapse the shoulders of the baby, and it was horrible. Oh, and most times I tell people that, like somebody else you pour anointing oil into the matrix of a woman and you end up suffocating the baby to death. Please and please and please, I am faith-based. To all the pastors' wives, imams, all of us out there, for a nation's sake, for a generation's sake, can we look for interventions? Because the reality is this: preach it all you want. In our churches, they are having sex. In the mosque, they are doing these things. And the reality is that if we don't find the interventions, we're going to keep pushing them to the back door. And we need, even if it's not about saying, oh, let's legalize abortion, we need to set up proper conversations for interventions that are with the NGO participation, the government participation, all of us coming together. And we can define what is a legally acceptable value chain for every one of us, because Nigeria is part of a global community. If we don't want to go that extreme, I don't want us to go that extreme. We are Nigeria. We can define and create something, a policy with the right kind of emotional health. Thank you for telling me that they give them counseling, but you and I know the kind of counseling that happens, whether it's in church or in the hospital.
Yes, I think Dayo made a very fundamental point, saying, I think earlier in the program, that sex education also, pre-abortion education, is also very fundamental, and I think that's one of our major takeaways from this segment of the show.
We also need to bring Dayo back to explain feminine.
Oh,
feminine versus feminine.
I am
as soon as I heard about that, I was like,
yeah, you're ready,
that's a whole topic of its own.
Because most, anyways, that's a topic for a different time. Let's not get into it. So the number to call to share your thoughts would be on the screen shortly. But after this, we go into the political segment of the program. Dayo, Managing Director of DOXA GROUP, Dr. David, medical practitioner, thank you so much for joining us in today's program.
Thank you.
Have a nice weekend.
We'll take a break right now. When we return, more Weekend.